Okay, welcome back to the Bring Your Big Energy podcast. I am so pumped about today's guest. I can't wait to tell you all about Danielle Zanzarov. Is an executive health strategist. She is the founder of South Bay Wellness and the creator of Coherent Longevity and Body-Led approaches to health, energy, and resilience. She's here because her work sits at the intersection of big energy, intensity points, and sustainable leadership. So Dr. D works with high-performing women and leaders who look successful on the outside, but inside feel exhausted, inflamed, anxious, or disconnected. So many listeners are like, yes, girl, this is me right now. They totally get this. We've all been there. So while hormones and menopause often show up, her work really focuses on the bigger picture, which is coherence. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today, which I'm really pumped to bring all of you listeners. She teaches us that symptoms aren't failures. They're just really intelligent signs that the body is out of coherence. So her work invites us to stop overriding our bodies and start partnering with them, which I love this concept, this like listening and leaning in, which is so wonderful. So clarity, energy, confidence, and health come with coherence, not force. I'm so glad you're here. Did I miss anything?
I think you did an excellent job, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's so much greatness, and I want to make sure I capture it all. So, all right, great. So we're glad you're here, and let me just jump in. So, we talk a lot about intensity points here on the Bring Your Big Energy podcast. So let's start by your own intensity point. What was happening in your life or your work that led you to actually question the push through it approach that we all do to health and performance?
Yeah, I love that. I've been a healthcare practitioner for almost 20 years. I'm still 21 years old, though, just for the record. Okay.
Same.
But almost 20 years. And I know the in and outs. I'm sure most of your listeners, they know how to be healthy. They know how to take care of themselves. They know, okay, we have to manage our stress, we have to do all these things. And yet sometimes knowing isn't enough. And a few years ago, I found myself in this position. I'm a mom. I've got 4 kids. My kids are into all sorts of things. My daughters ride horses. My sons ride dirt bikes. And we lived in Long Island. We spent our weekends, I went off with my daughter this way and my husband went off this way, and we're crossing bridges and we're just running this crazy life while I'm also managing my practice and taking care of people. And then we decide, you know what, this isn't manageable anymore. We're going to move. So we moved. And we moved to Texas, and the 6 of us plus our 2 cats live in our 100 square foot RV for almost a year.
Wow.
That is a big test because we didn't know where we were going yet. We still had to figure out where we wanted to land and where we were going to, settle down and all of that. But in the midst of all that, of course, we did find a house, and we're looking at the new house, and I'm in the backyard, and unbeknownst to me, I'm standing on a fire ant mound. Never knew what those were. We don't have those in New York, but I'm covered within seconds. I'm covered in ants. And within the next hour, I'm now in anaphylactic shock from the ants bites. And we're in the middle of nowhere. We don't know where we are. We're on the phone with 911, trying to find where the nearest place is. We're literally meeting the ambulance on the road, thank God, so that, I survived that event. But, Stacey, I run a successful practice. I take care of a lot of people. I'm making sure that my kids are pursuing their dreams and getting what they need. And I find myself in the ER, and I know inherently, okay, things are going to be okay. And I get home, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got to be on a flight to our office in New York because I was commuting at this point. Every month I was going back and forth. I'd spend massive long days seeing clients from the morning to the evening just to get everything in that period of time while I was in the office. And to be completely transparent, and nobody knows this, but it's okay to say it now, I'd even sleep on the office couch because there wasn't enough time. I wasn't going to pack my bags, go to the hotel, drive there, and then be back for the next morning. That was no, we're just even going to sleep right here.
Yes.
So when I lived in the office for that week, I literally mean I lived in the office for that week. But, so that next morning I get up and I'm on my way at 11 a.m., Dallas, Fort Worth to JFK.
Wow.
And for me, it was just what It's just what it was. I just took care of people. It's what I did. It's who I am. It's the way that you're successful. You just push through. And it's funny, like, I know better. This is what I work with my clients on. And still, like, the veil comes down and you can't even see where you're at in that process yourself. Sometimes we can't even see the things about ourselves that we need to really see. Well, I got to see it because when my airplane landed in JFK and I turned my cell phone back on, I got a call from one of the health coaches on my team. So while I was en route, another member of our team passed away in an accident.
Gosh.
And it was in that moment, it's those moments when you realize, like, okay, this is life. And then you're like, oh my goodness, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
And I had no choice but to stop and slow down and begin to really look at, okay, I'm eating well, I'm taking my supplements, I'm doing the things, but I am literally out of what I call coherence. My body, it is subsisting on what it is that I'm giving it that's good, but it's certainly not in balance. And my nervous system wasn't in balance, and it was like full brakes in that moment. It's like, if things don't change, this is not going the way that you want it to go. This is not going to benefit not any of your clients, and it's not going to benefit yourself. And that, for me, was a pivotal moment. Like, gosh, girl, you got to wake up.
Well, and I thank you for sharing, like, what a hard, like, life experience, and so many intensity points really kind of stacked on top of each other. And I think because of the work you do, people think you've got it all figured out. You're perfect. And even as a coach, same thing. And I'm just like an executive coach, and people are like, your life must just be perfectly planned. And I'm like, girl, I'm a hot mess half times. And so I think, but the beauty of it, of us going through really hard things, is we're better teachers because we've been students. And then think and you can go years from being teaching and teaching and teaching, and all of a sudden it stops you in your track. Like, wow, now I'm actually a student, right? And so I'm actually doing this right now as I'm trying to, like, build my New Year's plan. I'm like, I'm going back to my process because I needed it for a reason and I built it. So, okay, so at that moment, did you already know what coherence was, or is that a word that like talk to me about how that shows up for you then in that moment, and what changes for you then?
Yes. Yeah. Great question. So coherence is a word that I've used, but it's now taken on a brand new meaning. We talk about the body, the bioenergetic field being in coherence when it's operating at its best. But the way that I use coherence is much different now, because it's not just about, yes, it's about the body's operating systems, but the truth is those operating systems do not communicate the way they're supposed to communicate when we're sort of incoherent, when we're in this space of disarray, when we're kind of all over the place physically, mentally, emotionally, when there's none of that, like, grounding, when we're just kind of doing and doing and doing and not actually being present in the moment. Everything kind of flies off the table. And don't get me wrong, like, for those next several days that I was in New York, like, it had to be game face on. It had to be like, okay, I've got to be a leader here. Like, I have a community of people who are deeply impacted, and I need to step up. And so in that public space, I needed to be that person. And in that private space, now I'm away from my family. Now, I'm not stranded. I chose to stay there until everything was really handled and taken care of. But it was a couple of weeks when all I really wanted to do in those moments was go home and hug my family and hug my children, and I couldn't do that. In when you're laying there at night before you fall asleep and you're like, God, please give me the guidance. Like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And what is really important? And that's really become what's informed my work, because we work with a lot of women who they're doing this on a daily basis. Like, this is their life. And yet they're tired, they're exhausted, they're burned out. Illnesses are kind of creeping in here and there and all of that. And it comes down to that recognition of, like, okay, well, where am I in all of this, and how all of these things, fitting together? How are all those pieces coming together, and where are they stuck? like a puzzle piece that's like,
Yes.
it's jammed in there. It looks like it fits, but really it doesn't fit.
It's so true. And I would love your perspective on this because I feel like what I'm hearing you say is I put my game face on, I was strong. And I always love it because, like, I'm a two-time cancer survivor, and people would be like, "You're such a warrior. You're so strong." And I'm like, "Girl, was there another choice?" Because, like, I would have gladly taken door B, right? But when you need to show up as a leader, you show up, right? And that's what great leaders do. But on the other side of that is, where am I at in this story? I mean, even if you're a leader and I've gone through this a lot at Google, where I was part of like huge reorgs that were like moving my team around. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you know and love your team, it is a big deal. And as a leader, it would be really hard to be like, wow, I'm scared of this. I don't like this. Like, I'm frightened. I don't know if I believe in this, but I'm going to steward my team through this. What is your advice on holding that strong outer face, but also like making sure you're taking care of yourself as well?
That's a really good question, because I think in our world today, we've kind of become misguided on what real vulnerability and authenticity is, where it's almost like, you look at social media, everyone's got smiles and everything is roses and everything is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And, now you got AI, so you can, you could be 20 years younger and 20 pounds lighter and whatever, right? Everything behind you can be glorious. But if we are really leaders and we are really, truly impacting one another and making a difference in the world, I think that you can't let that vulnerability fall aside. You can't allow that pretense to become who you are and where you lead from. So it's that vulnerability that connects us, that makes us human. The fact that I'm imperfect, the fact that I could have a stressful phone call and find myself standing in my refrigerator just like one of my clients would, that makes me human. That makes me be able to understand and relate. And it makes them see like, hey, like, okay, like there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just like, this is just part of my journey right now. And I think that's really, really important. Now, we're not talking about like losing your cookies over everything in a board meeting or something, but we're talking about, it's a level of emotional maturity is what I would say, to allow that kind of vulnerability. And to be honest, I don't think I could do the work that I do with my clients if there was no space for vulnerability. And like you said, sometimes I have to remind them, hey, I'm human.
Yes.
Human. Yeah. Every now and again, I'll have a glass of wine. I'm not perfect. I do things, even though I know I shouldn't do them, because that's part of the human experience.
Yes. And giving ourselves a little bit of grace, right? It's actually because I was scripting out my podcast that I'm going to do for this year. And it was like giving ourselves a grace that we all have these goals for the year 2026, and we've got them in front of them. And I had like 6 goals. And now yesterday I did good on 4 of them. And I'm mad at myself. I'm like, why am I mad at myself? 4 out of 6 new things is pretty damn good, right? And so I think giving ourselves that grace to be like, okay, if you're moving forward in the most healthy 90-10, 80-20 way, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I come back to, I always go back. You've probably read the book, The Gap of the Gain. I forgot.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But I always share that with my clients because it's so easy, especially when you're like type A and you're driven and you're used to kind of pushing. You're always like focused on where you still need to go, but never like acknowledging and recognizing like, wow, look how far I've really come. Okay, so maybe things aren't perfect, but you know what? Like this time last year, I would have done this instead. And now I'm just even aware of where I'm at. And that's a huge shift. And we've got to start to acknowledge those shifts and the journey and the space and not just be like, okay, now I got to go there. And I admit this is hard for me. I'm like, I want to get there, right? I want to get to that point there. Like, can I just be there now? Yes. But the truth is, if we are leading, if we are high performing, if, that is part of who we are, there is no there that we're ever going to get to because the ball keeps moving.
Right. And we often move it for ourselves even.
Exactly. So I always tell our clients, hey, settle in.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Okay, so I'm so thankful that you shared your own story because I think that's so important. Now take us to, if you would, please, when a client comes into your office, because I think so many listeners are likely very similar to a lot of your clients. Yes. What are their symptoms? What is showing up for them? What is happening that you're like, oh, you're out of a coherence and let's help you lead the way? And how do they show up and what does that process start to look like for you?
Yeah, good question. So there, sometimes our clients will say, wow, you know me. And I'm like, yeah, because guess what? We're like, many women are going through the same thing. And it's, we're waking up and we're really exhausted. We don't want to get up out of bed. We know we have to, but we kind of push our way through. We push our way through the day. Maybe some people are using coffee and caffeine to keep themselves moving. Others are just kind of pushing through. She's like, yeah, that's me.
Hand raised for those on the audio.
Their digestion is going off. I always say, you want to have 2 to 3 nice soft serve ice cream bowel movements a day. That starts to go astray. We don't have the energy to exercise. We're snapping at people without even realizing. And then what happens when you snap at people? Then you end up in that like spiral of guilt and shame, like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. And then people start beating themselves up. A lot of women are just at the point where they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
They're scared, like, this isn't who I was. This isn't who I know myself to be. Like, oh my gosh, is it ever going to get back to the way it was? Will I ever be able to think clearly again? Will I ever have the energy that I had? Will I have to keep worrying about all these things that are kind of falling apart, symptomatically? And I think that's where most people are when they come in. They know that this isn't supposed to be this way, and they know that there's another way. And they're just trying to figure it out.
I love that you say scared, and not because that's a hard word. And I think we're so scared to say we're scared. Like, we're not supposed to be scared. We are badass women leaders. We're moms. We run billion-dollar businesses. We're not scared. And so I've never had it described as scared before. So I love that, because I think people, all the things you've said as a coach, I hear is like, I don't know what's going on. I want to get back to the old me, which I want to debate that with you.
Yes.
If that's even possible. But often I don't hear scared. And so talk more about, are people telling you this, or can you sense it, or talk about that word for me, please?
Oh, I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
When I sit down with a lot of our clients and we move into that space where they feel safe and they feel comfortable, scared is a word that they use. Right? Like, they're afraid, like, this is it. They're afraid that, the doctors told them, oh, well, maybe your lab work looks normal, so you're just getting older. This is the way it's just going to be. So you can expect that, essentially it's like, hey, you can expect that things are just going to keep declining from here.
Right.
And there is that fear of like, wait a second, I haven't done everything that I want to do in my life. I have so much more that I want to accomplish, and I want to experience, and I want to enjoy, and I want to live. I think that's the main thing, is people come in, to my practice anyway, because they want to live, they want to enjoy life, they want to partake, but they're held back by these constraints. They're held back by the way that they're feeling.
And that's so I just wrote down perspective versus change. So how much do you work on what we're able to control and change versus our perspective on, we're all going to get older, spoiler alert, we all die? So how do you work through that?
Well, I think we are all going to get older. I always joke, I'm like, I'm on the 200-year plan. Like, that's the plan we want to be on. And sometimes we have to look at things like that. Like, we have to take a look at, okay, well, what are our goals? And am I going to live in alignment or misalignment with those goals? And then sometimes you have to kind of, like I did, I had to reveal, where am I living out of alignment with my goals and with who I am and what I practice and what I tell people. So there's that level of real honesty and authenticity in looking at yourself. But I think, so going back to your question, right, between, what we're perceiving and kind of, well, yes, we are eventually all going to leave. That's the way this game ends. But the perspective that we take through the journey doesn't have to always be the same way, right? Like, we can actually age with vibrancy and energy and feel good. We don't have to settle for, okay, well, I'm getting older, I'm just going to have aches and pains. Well, what if you didn't have to get older and just have aches and pains? What if those aches and pains are there because they're a signal that, hey, something's out of balance in the body. And when we rebalance that, then those aches and pains start to subside. So I think there's the other perspective to be mindful of too, is like, we can look at it as like, okay, I'm going to age and die. So let's be okay with like things getting worse, not better. Or we can be like, okay, well, I know that this is going to happen, but how do I make this the best darn journey ever so that I can actually enjoy being on the journey, so that I can thrive, so I can participate, so that I can, live the life that I want to love, serve the purpose that I want to serve.
Oh,
Does that
that's
make
so
sense?
true. 100%. I mean, I'm thinking total overshare, but here I go. I'm on this Arimidex, which is like a cancer, a second, whatever cancer drug. And it really hurts your joints a lot. And I'm a runner and I'm active and I love all things like that. And I was constantly, I had this joint pain. And then my doctor was like, here's a natural supplement you can try. It
Sure.
was life, and I don't even barely know the name of it. You probably would, but it was life changing, Doctor Z, literally life changing. I'm like, I can walk and run, and I just as long as I take a supplement. And so I think it's being open to and being curious and checking in on yourself, but also
Yeah.
having someone like yourself that is a professional that can help you say like, look, you don't have to suffer through this. Like, there's modern medicine, there's herbal, there's all these different things. So
Yes.
you talk a lot about symptoms, and I really love this conversation around symptoms being intelligent signals, not failures. How do you
Yes.
help people to rebuild that trust with their body?
Yeah, I love that question. And I want to come back to a really, really big word that you used just now, and that was curiosity. Well, and I think we have to approach our health with curiosity. I think we need to approach our entire life with curiosity. Right? Oh, look at
Great.
behave there. I wonder why they happen, right? Why is
Yeah.
my body doing that? Like, I wonder why that's happening. But I think it comes down to that curiosity. I always tell people your symptoms are just signals, are a sign that there's something kind of out of balance. There's some incoherence happening there. So your cells are kind of like, I don't know what to do or how to do it. Things aren't getting the way they're supposed to get. The lines are getting crossed versus everything's flowing exactly the way that it should be. And, so when we shift and take that perspective, things become solvable versus insolvable. And we can start to look at things with a brand new lens. We're no longer like trapped in this little box of this is the way things are, but okay, maybe there's something else that's going on. And I really do believe, I mean, irregardless of anybody's faith beliefs or things like that, I do believe that God designed us or the universe designed us, whatever your belief is, ingeniously.
Oh, absolutely.
Our
Absolutely
body
agree.
knows. It knows. It is a perfect machine. And we honestly know a very teeny tiny bit about how it works. If we were to really be honest with ourselves, yes, we have all this science and we have all this research and we've mapped the gene sequences, but yeah, we still know like a fraction of what there is to know about the way that the body truly actually works and all the different components of that. But when we can stop and be like, okay, so if my body isn't malfunctioning, if my body isn't broken, what is it that it's actually doing? What's really happening? Like, oh, okay, so I'm getting into my 50s and 60s and they're saying, maybe I'm losing some bone. Like, my gosh, like I've got like osteopenia or osteoporosis. Well, why is my body doing that? Is that just really a natural part of aging? Or is it that your body's being really smart? It's like we've spent years depleting our minerals. And where is the easiest, safest place for your body go to pull minerals to keep yourself alive? It's going to be your teeth and your bones. So is that just a coincidence or is our body actually doing what it's supposed to, which is operating for our highest and best interest in our survival, whatever that looks like, even if it looks like high blood sugar, even if it looks like weight gain, it's doing that for a reason. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm thinking of total side note, but my dad had a heart attack and they couldn't do, and he's still alive and well and amazing with us.
Okay.
And they couldn't do a surgery. They just couldn't the way that it was. But they said the best we can hope for is that your heart just like rewires the veins. And we were like, that seems insane. It did. It
Sure.
did. His heart found new ways and new veins to pump through to save his life. And he 30, 40 years ago.
Wow.
So when you talk about the machine that is our body, wow, it's such a beautiful, and again, whoever you believe, universe, God, but I definitely agree. Okay, so if we think of a body as a perfect machine and we see green lights and we see yellow lights and then we see red lights and we see these signals, like that's how I'm picturing
Yes.
your signals.
Sure.
What are some of, and maybe first say the kind of audience in general you work most with, and then what do you
Right.
think some of those lights are that people are seeing most? That our listeners can be like, oh, I'm not crazy. This is me too. Give us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of we work with a lot of women, right? And a lot of those women are, in that 40 to 60 range, more or less, give or take. And there are a lot of signals that happen in that area. Of course, we're entering our season of hormonal change for women. And I always say, well, that's a really good, that time of our life is almost like a magnifying glass for signals. It's like spotlight on anything that's been kind of hanging out there at the low level in terms of being out of balance, right? Your blood sugar, your energy, your digestion, your minerals, like whatever's kind of been teetering out of balance now, we're just like, whoo, it's gonna start to scream at us, right? And I always say, like, the best way we manage through that transition is we bring everything back into balance. Because it's getting more out of balance. Why? Because we're shifting something's shifting. So if you're trying to shift something that's sitting on an unstable base, it's going to be really hard to do that. So if the gravel underneath is like all, mismatched and rocky, and it's not like doing what it's supposed to be and nice and smooth and operating correctly, well, when we go to shift that thing on top of it, it's going to start to scream. It's going to start to fall apart. It's now going to become a really difficult transition. And so, people will start to experience things like, okay, why is this weight coming on? I haven't changed my diet, or I haven't done all these things. Or why am I suddenly like voraciously like hungry? Like all I want to do is eat. Or why am I now like waking up in the middle of the night? Or why am I, like I said earlier, why am I snapping at my family, or my employees, or, my friends? Like, what the heck is going on here? Or how come like all of a sudden, like my digestion is just a mess, or now my thyroid numbers are back out of whack. And those are all signals that the other systems are just out of balance. I always like to say your health, it's not necessarily linear. It's not like a straight line. It's not like, okay, you fix this and then you fix this and you fix this and you fix that. Yes, there's a certain order to making sure that you're doing things effectively and efficiently, but it's also kind of like more like a Rubik's Cube. How you take that Rubik's Cube and you move this and you move that and you move this and you move that, and then all of a sudden all the sides line. It's kind of more like that. And there isn't a one size fits all. Because we're all different, right? I might have a symptom because of, maybe a broken bone that I had when I was 4, or maybe a trauma that I experienced in my life, or, maybe I was exposed to something I didn't even know that I was exposed to. So there's all these different nuances to it. But the curiosity piece, Stacey, that's the big one. I always tell our clients, it's like you are the experiment of one. And so we can start to look at our health and maybe in our life a little bit from that scientific perspective, like the experiment, like, okay, when I eat that, how do I feel afterwards? Or what happens the next day? Is it like I eat a sandwich on Monday and then every Tuesday morning I'm arguing with my spouse? Well, why is that? It's like starting to make those connections to what's happening. And it's different because somebody else might eat a sandwich and not argue with their spouse the next morning.
It's so funny. We talk about how intricate and how amazing the human body is, but then we all want to be able to Google exactly what's wrong with us based on, right? We want the immediate, well, this is what happens in every case. And you're right. We are such kind of snowflakes, fingerprints, which is the beautiful part about us. But I love this notion of getting curious. And I do think that's one of the best words to apply to your entire life. So my business partner and I, whenever we try something and it fails, we go, look at us learning. We're always, look at us learning, right? We're curious, we're learners. And it's like that growth mindset, or that learner's mindset, right? Excuse me, that matters most. Okay, so now we're listening, we're getting curious about our body. We're seeing some of these signals. Then what comes next for us? What should we be doing next?
Well, we've got to start exploring why those signals are popping up. And we do live in a world that's not necessarily health friendly. Yeah. Okay. And yes, we've got to look at your diet. We've got to look at your supplementation. We've got to look at, where the metabolic function is off, where the hormones are off, all of that. But I'll tell you one thing that's really, really key and critical, and that is the nervous system. So I know a lot of people are like, quick, like go grab that supplement or go grab whatever. But one of the first things we need to do is actually slow down and bring that nervous system back into check. I always say you could have the best diet in the world. You could take the most amazing supplements. We could put together for you the absolute perfect protocol on what your body says it needs. But if you're running around stressed out all the time, you're in this high anxious state and you're not like literally grounded in your body, all of that stuff will be for naught. Like you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. Well, you might, some people white knuckle through for a little while, but like you can only white knuckle for so long, you know?
So why is it the foundation? Like what happens?
Because so let's use the word coherence here to show that. So
Okay.
imagine that you're in this sort of chaotic state. There is nothing coherent in chaos. Nothing is communicating with anything else the way it's supposed to. So if we can just slow all that down, and I don't mean slow life down. I don't mean slow life down. I don't mean like stop doing everything that you're doing. But if we can just bring ourselves back to that present moment, if we can calm the nervous system, which can be as easy as just being mindful about your breath. It can be as easy as rubbing your two fingers and your thumb together and just getting present to, feeling the ridges in your fingers to just bring yourself back into that moment. Now your body comes back and it's like, okay, it's like it needs a breath. Like we literally need a breath to give the body the space to start to communicate. It's like what's happening is we're in a really crowded bar and there's people talking and yelling all over. And it's like your friend's all the way on the other side and your friend's got this really important message to give you, but you can't hear any of that message. It's like the same as the communication signals in the body. So if there's all of this interference, loud noise, and there's all this space between you can't see them or things like that, well, the message can't get through. And it's no different in our body. And in this day and age, and again, we work with a population of successful, high-performing women. And that whole, like, let's get grounded, slow down. They're like, well, wait a second, hold on. I live in my head. And I've been there. I do it too. It's why I know it so well.
Right.
When you live in your head, you're like, oh, wait, I have a body? Like, what's going on in the body?
Yes.
So we can start to even see signals before, it's like I can feel the pebble before it becomes the boulder that smacks us in the head.
It's so true.
Yeah, that's really important. So
go ahead.
Yeah. It's part of that like tuning in process. It's starting to be about tuning in.
Yeah. And how do we do that is the question. So I'm totally on board. I completely get it. But as a woman that used to have a gigantic job, as women that are in transition, looking at legacy careers, raising kids, taking care of ailing parents, how do we get this message across to women? And I know this goes for men and women, but we're speaking to women primarily in this audience right now, is how do we get people to understand that regulation coming first really just expands our ability to do more and to be better and to show up stronger? And then how do you do it when you're in those spaces that are not built for me sitting doing the breathing? So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Like, wait a second, Dr. D, I can't stop during the middle of my day and meditate for an hour. Right. That's not happening. Right. But it doesn't do that. It's those micro things, those micro moments, those micro activities, like rubbing your fingers together or just like taking a deep breath, closing your eyes. And like, you can do that in a second and no one even has to notice that you're doing that, but just coming back to that space. So I think that there's a perspective or a belief that you've got to stop everything you're doing in order to get present and slow down. Like you literally have to slow everything else down in order for you to slow down. And that's not always the case. That's actually, I think, a limiting belief. Now, we want to be careful because what do we do as high achieving women? We're like, well, let's just go do more. It's not about more. Sometimes it's about doing less. Sometimes it's about starting to, we don't always start with people in this place, but at some point in your journey, you have to start to ask yourself, well, why is it that this is my default behavior?
Right.
Why is it that I am doing this? And there is often, because the work that you do, there's often a whole lot of stuff right there in that pot that we need to, again, get curious about. But I think the key thing is if we can just stop, bring in some of those micro moments, begin to feel the difference of those, like give ourselves the real gift, the opportunity to do that, it then becomes its own reinforcer. And so it becomes that part of the process. Not that we're perfect, not that we're like, okay, I'm doing real good. And then 3 months later, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm eating, potato chips again. How did this happen? Normal human. That's where we bring in our questions like, isn't that curious? I wonder what happened there. And then we start to look at it. I always say, imagine that your hand is waving back behind your head. It's like you can't see it. You don't know what's happening back there. It's waving, but you have no consciousness of it. So each of these things that happens, including all of the signals, all of our behaviors, if we can get curious, we can actually take it, bring it to the front, look at it. Now it's in front of our face and we can be like, now I see you. But if it's always there in the background and we don't actually look at it and see it, we don't know that it's actually happening.
So how do we get it to come to the forefront? I love this idea. Like how do we force ourselves to be like, oh wait, I'm putting the hand in front of my face today, or I'm doing it once today, or I'm doing it 3 times today. Like is there a trick there?
Well, I think, there is a trick. And the trick, we've already talked about the trick, actually. The trick is just it's just getting present. It is like coming out of your head and being like, what do I feel right now? Where do I feel it? Well, that's interesting. And then getting curious about it. That's the trick. It's not, there's no rocket science there. There's no magic. There's no magic wand or magic pill. It's just that first piece of becoming curious.
I love that. So we've talked a lot about what it's like to not be in that coherence. We talked a lot about why it happens, what to do about it. When we meet this or enter into this space that is beautifully coherent, if we are as lucky to do so, either through partnering with you or doing some tools on our own, what does that feel and look like?
It feels like, I want to be careful with the word that I use here. If I was going to initially say balance, but balance is such a loaded word. It's not really the word I want to use. It feels like presence. It feels like connection. It is that connection to yourself and to your own being. And the truth is, the more connected that we become to ourselves, and I don't mean it in a frou-frou kind of way. I mean it like literally like in that moment where you're like checking in with your body, like, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm noticing that little sensation that's happening in my hip over there. But that connection, the more and more we strengthen that connection, honestly, the easier and easier it is to take care of ourselves.
That's so true. I think it's sort of the repetition thing. So it's like if I go to bed early and I wake up feeling great one night, I might want to look at that again the next night. You start to get curious, or maybe you skip the glass of wine because you feel a little bit better, or maybe the treadmill gives you more energy for Disney, and so whatever it is. So you start to see that it's like this pattern of your behavior. And I love that because I think so many of us get into this place of this is what I've always done. So this is what I've always done. So this is what's always going to work for me. And that's just not the way as we evolve as human beings, physically, mentally, spiritually, any of that. And so having that curiosity and being able to try some things to be able to evolve, I think is really key.
Yeah. And I want to have some caution here because we spoke already about, hey, the journey kind of never ends. Like there is no one space for arrival, because if you think about it, we as human beings, we like to be really comfortable. So we've already forged this path of like our habits and behaviors and things like that. And so, during that period of transition, there is some discomfort that comes with it. It's not all roses. There is that part that we got to be like, look at that hand waving in the back of my head is my unwillingness to be a little bit uncomfortable, because I just, it's much easier to grab a glass of wine at the end of the day to relax. And so they're like, it's not all roses. There is a part of the process where we have to be really honest with ourselves and be like, okay, well, why is this important to me? And why am I doing it? Why is it worth it for me? Yeah. But it is, it's uncomfortable staying stuck, and it's uncomfortable making change. We have to just choose which of that do we want to choose, because it's either one or the other.
Yeah. There's a Tony Robbins, like I'm known on this show here for butchering quotes. I read a ton, but I never know. I can always cite the quote most times, but there's like the Tony Roberts quote, which is about like, when you actually make change, it's because the pain of staying the same has become sometimes too dense for you to stay in that moment. So you have to make a change. And I do think it's kind of like the boiling pot of water. Finally, we've got to get out of it. Otherwise, it's pretty easy. There's a book called, I had to read it during my coaching certification, called Immunity to Change. And there's studies that show that like 90% of patients that are told that they're going to die if they don't make better choices don't make better choices, because that's how hard change is. We know. So I guess what's the last piece of advice? Because I know we're almost at time and I want to get up to some other cool stuff you're working on, but change is freaking hard. So what's your advice?
Well, I think we could go back to the really simple beginning advice, which is keep it simple. Like start with the things that are really simple, manageable. And I know, because like I said, we work with a lot of successful people. They want it all. And I'm the same way. I'm like, you just going to give me one thing? Like, come on, man. That's just like, yeah, I mean, I need all of it, right? Like, give me all the things to do at once. But then when that happens, then we start like, we can't handle everything all at the same time. So it all like falls apart, and then we feel like a failure, and then all that other stuff starts to happen, and now we're falling into our little human traps. But we have what we call it our spiral, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna get up, but then there's gonna be times that we go down, but we're gonna go back up. But the whole time we're still evolving and moving in the right direction. That's what matters. So keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. If life is already overwhelming and now we're going to throw in 15 more overwhelming things, well, go back to your nervous system and being present. We're not moving forward. We're staying stuck because we've just made things, we think we're making them better, but maybe what we're doing is making them worse. Now, it's a fine line, Stacey. I want to be really clear so especially when it comes, like, we're really smart as human beings, your brain can justify and do all that. So you want to recognize like what that line actually is. Like, if it's truly staying in bed and sleeping an hour longer because your body really needs the rest, versus I don't really want to exercise because it's warm in my bed, and it's cold outside. That's a difference. There's a difference in the line there. The question comes, what is it that really serves my highest and best interest? What is it that serves me? And that's the space to look for those decisions. There are times when staying in bed does serve you, but then there's times when that's a sabotage.
Yes, right. I always tell myself in the morning, I'm like, okay, the version of yourself that you want to be, what is she doing right now? She might be, and you're exactly right. She might be sleeping because she was up all night with a sick kid. She might be sleeping that morning. But the other day she might be on the spin bike because that's what she needs. And so I love this notion of and I really like your visualizations of a lot of different things, because, and hopefully that'll be helpful to the listeners as well, because I feel like we need to attach ourselves to something to remember things. And so I sort of liked this idea of like a spiral versus a linear thing. So it's like I think we're so used to being measured. Let's get better. Let's get better. Let's get better. Achieve more, do more. Whereas a spiral or circle or web, even if you wanted to invite, of different, okay, you're going to go here and then you're going to go here, but it doesn't have to be always up and to the right, and that's okay as well.
Right. Exactly. And we can choose wherever we want to be on that. Like, I've had clients who, for example, who come into our program and something in their life happens during the program, like a parent passes or something like that. And it's like, hey, you know what? Let's just take all this and pause this right now. Like, just go take care of yourself. Don't worry about all of these different things. Like, let's go take care of yourself first. We can go back to like Maslow's hierarchy. If we're just in survival mode, like we're not thinking about our most amazing exercise and our most amazing body, and am I going to make the best dinner ever? We're just surviving. So that's part of that, being in tune with your body and just listening to what it is that your body needs. When we build that partnership, that the world changes. Like, you're your body's partner. Like, you work together. We're not just ahead. We're together and we work together.
Partnership. I love that partnership with your body.
You can still have arguments with yourself, because we all do.
It's so real. I started just like researching some of this inner family system stuff from a coaching
Uh-huh.
perspective, not a therapeutic. And yeah, there's some fights that can happen in there, and that's okay. That's totally normal. So I completely agree. Okay, so you got some exciting stuff coming up, all kinds of greatness coming up. But I know that you're building a Pocket Coherence Coach app, or building into your app. I think I read. What inspired that, and what does that look like? Who's that going to help, and how is that
Uh,
going to roll out?
yes. Well, we've got some time before that. It's who knew that these things were so technologically advanced, but
Yes.
we are working on this because it is about bringing back that connection to the body and knowing that like, hey, we're checking in. So part of what we're creating is the opportunity for people to be able to check in with themselves on a regular basis, to get up in the morning, decide what kind of day. Like, you know what? Every day you don't want to be on. You don't want a high energy day every day, but to be
Yeah.
able to say, okay, this is the kind of day that I want. This is kind of how I'm feeling now. And then to be like, we want to take some of the thought work and the overwhelm away from it. So here's a sample list. This is the things for you to focus on today. So there's that constant, I don't have to think about it. It's already there. There's nothing else to overwhelm me. I can choose what it is that I want to focus on. But then also that consistent rechecking in with the body to see what it is that's happening. That's one of the biggest parts of
I
the
love
Coherence app. There's
that.
there's other tracking features and Q&A, and there's a source library for if you do want to do a 2-minute or a 5-minute or a 20-minute meditation or something like that. So all those pieces are in there, but it's really that getting back to being grounded with yourself and what's happening in with your body, right? Oftentimes we don't just go from being really healthy to really sick. There's usually warning signs in there, except we don't reflect on those warning signs. It's usually when they get really, really loud that we're like, whoa, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. We want to get back to that space where we can hear the whispers and then know how to shift our behaviors, activities, thoughts, etc., to adjust to what those whispers are saying.
I love that. It's a perfect combination of intentionality and curiosity,
Yes.
and being able to have a partner there with you too. So I love that. That's so exciting. Okay, so before we close out, I want to ask you one last question. If someone here is listening today and they're feeling exhausted or disconnected right now, what do you most think that they need to hear from you?
So you know, there's a line that's used over and over to get today. It's like the AI line, "You're not broken." And I completely despise that line. Like
Yeah.
anytime I see that, I'm like, yeah, okay, that was just AI generated.
Yeah.
But there is some truth to that. And I'm going to flip it the other way. And that is that your body is whole and complete and that it knows exactly what to do. And the first thing to do is really listen to it. So if
Mm.
you are feeling tired, if you are exhausted, if these things are happening, get curious about why is this happening for me and my body? What does my body really need? I always tell everybody, so before you wake up out of bed, before you touch your phone, before any of that, like just stick your hands on your heart or put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly when you're still in that state where you're shifting into like being conscious from sort of that unconscious space and ask like, hey, what do you need today?
I
I
love
love
that.
you. What do you need today?
I love that.
And then the world starts to open up. I mean, we can talk about diet and nutrition and we can talk about your supplements and we can talk about your exercise, but just that presence it's foundational.
And it's again that partnership instead of, hey, body, go do this thing and just make it run all day because I got a busy day, to like, okay, what do we need? I love you. I respect you. Like we're in this together, and it's just a different way of resetting your entire day. I would imagine from a positive energy standpoint, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And hey, as I think the other piece is like, as high performers, I think sometimes we have to manage our expectations. Like I know I'm like, Danielle, what the heck were you thinking? How did you actually think that you were going to complete 30 things on your to-do list today?
Right.
Let's be real
Right.
about like, so
Yes.
really start to be like, okay, well, what is really manageable? So we're not stuck in that space. We're like, oh, I never got there. Where you'd be like, oh, like, look at that. I completed 3 of the things that were on there. Not all 30, because it's not humanly possible.
I'm laughing because I did this today. I was like, where is my time to shower and eat food? Like, I don't seem to have that baked in today, but when did I expect to do that, right? So thank goodness I had some cancel on me today because I was like, this is my time frame, but it goes to show. It's like the expectation level we have for ourselves is probably a lot higher than it needs to be. So we can enjoy life a little along the way, quite frankly, too.
There's nothing wrong with stepping up to the plate sometimes, right? Like sometimes we have things that we're working on that are like, okay, I'm going to stay up a little later tonight to work on this. That happens. There's an event happening with the family. Okay, I'm going to do this. Like New Year's, I'm going to stay up till midnight when I really want to be in bed at like 10. But that happens. It's just we can't always be in that space. So we have to modulate between those different spaces. Like I was talking with the app, like not every day is going to be a high energy day. It shouldn't be. We need that recovery. We can't perform at a high level if we don't take the time to recover, if we don't build that in. And, you know, I work from home, Stacey. I'll be transparent. There are some days I'm like, oh, there's no time for a shower. Forget it. I'm not going to see anybody in person.
Right.
Nobody can tell me, like, my hair is brushed. I got clothes on.
Yep.
You know, it might be yesterday's shirt, but like, hey, it's real sometimes.
But you're 99% of the population, too.
Yeah. If I did that every day, all the time, I mean, that'd be a long time to go without a shower, but then it would really have an impact. We want to really build up our body's resilience so that when those things happen, we're not crashing. And so the stronger and more coherent and aligned we become with our body, the more our body's in better alignment, coherence, communication, then we can have those blips. It's like, you know, if you throw let's say you throw a rock into a pond, or there's like a bunch of kids splashing around and there's boats going by. Well, that water is never going to calm. You're never going to be able to see it. There's too much there going on, right? It's not resilient enough to come back to stability. But if you throw a rock into a pond where, you know, the water is pretty quiet, well, then it'll have its little ripples and then it'll come back to that whole state. And so we want to keep coming back to that whole space.
I love that. That's such a beautiful example of what we want to look.
I just made that up.
Oh, it's so good. Good. Well, it's on air, so that's perfect. So it's out there. Okay, and then it's been such a pleasure to have you. Where can listeners follow you, consume your content, learn more about what you're up to? All
right, so they can find us on social media. So my personal platform is Dr. D, PhD, and then our practice is South Bay Wellness. So either of those are the way that they can find us. southbaywellness.com is our clinic website. DrD.com, you'll also find our True Wellness podcast with Dr. D as well. So we're out there. Find us, look us up. And for any of your audience, we always have the True Wellness checklist, and I'll leave a link for that with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing, for spending, you're a very busy woman, so spending your time with us today. And we appreciate you.
Yeah, this was a great conversation. Again, I hope your listeners just take a little piece of it. They don't have to take the whole thing.
Yep, exactly. Bite-sized, step by step, for sure. All right. Thanks, Dr. D.